Hey there, ghouls. It's the Creepmas season, and I know this is a very hectic time of year for all of us, but I'd like to invite you to kick back, relax, pour yourself a hot cocoa, and let me read you a story. Every night from now through December 24th, I will read you a chapter from my new holiday creature feature, Christmas Creeps from the Deep. So tune in and hang out with me at 7 p.m. Eastern Time every night for a new chapter. Let's get to it, shall we? Chapter 4, Carolers and Creatures. The next few seconds were a blur. Bucky brought the dagger down. Earl saw a streak of purple. It was Kyle with a C. He hit Chester, then Chester fell into his cousins Timmy and Daryl, and the three of them flew in all directions like bowling pins. The flying cousins knocked Bucky off balance. The dagger hit Brown Shag, right next to Earl's belly. Kyle with a C was no slim pickings. 6'3" and 250 at least, and thank God, or else Earl would be pinned to Bucky's dirty carpet like a moth in a museum display case. Bucky cursed as he wiggled the dagger back and forth, trying to free it from the carpet. Jethro stepped between Bucky and Earl and said, "Run!" Jethro didn't need to tell Earl twice. Earl kicked. The dolly candle fell over and rolled right into the black drapes covering the furniture. The drapes went up in flames. Bucky let go of the dagger and started stomping on the fire, screaming, "No, my empire! Empire, my ass!" Earl shut up and ran for his life, literally. The flames multiplied fast and were so hot by the time he made it to the hallway they nearly fused those red satin panties to his backside. Earl kept running, toppling towers of X-rated junk on his way to the front door. Then he sprinted out into the road and kept running, man bits bouncing. And boy, did he run. And bounce. That pair of tiny red panties could barely contain the jiggling mass of Earl. He prayed to whoever would listen that the fabric would hold together until he got home, because the only thing worse than running for your life from a cult ritual gone wrong wearing nothing but snow boots and tiny red satin panties was running for your life from a cult ritual gone wrong wearing nothing but snow boots. Earl's brain buzzed with the betrayal. He'd been drinking beer and shooting the shit with these guys for weeks. He genuinely thought they were his friends. That was a lie. Now Earl wondered if the monsters in the big white scale were lies too. All those bad movies and filterless cigarettes had muddled Bucky's brain. It didn't matter now. Earl had no choice but to hold tight to the top of those panties and keep running down Main Street in the dark, praying like hell Bucky didn't have enough gas in his 1983 GMC Vandora to run Earl down. He figured the odds were better than 50-50 on that one, since Bucky never put more than $5 worth in the tank at a time. That van was perpetually running on fumes. But gas or not, Bucky would come for Earl. He'd set his house on fire, and Bucky wasn't going to let that slide. So Earl ran faster than he ever had in his life, despite the cramp stabbing his side. He didn't stop. His life was on the line. Plus, if anyone drove by and saw him in these panties, he'd die from embarrassment. Certain death and humiliation were quite the motivators. Earl ran past the faded "Welcome to Misty Pines" sign and was up on his porch, pushing through the front door in record time. He shut the door, locked it behind him, then stopped to catch his breath. Granny snorted. Earl's hand shot down over the red satin panties, but it was a false alarm. Granny was sound asleep in her wheelchair, parked by the space heater that looked like a fireplace but wasn't. Her brown blanket with the airbrushed Howlin' Wolf on it was tucked around her skinny legs, just like it was every night in winter. Sleeping through anything was Granny's superpower, and Earl was thankful for it tonight. He didn't want her to see him in this outfit. He didn't want to explain. He didn't want to speak of this ever again. Earl double-checked the deadbolt, then started for his room, but he stopped at the big fish tank by the side window first. He couldn't help it. He had to check on his new friends. His real friends. The goldfish he rescued from owls had perked up considerably. They even came out to greet him. "At least you guys appreciate me. Feels nice after the night I've had." Earl sprinkled some food in, and the goldfish did happy little loop-de-loops as they ate. "You all look so much better. Clean water and food, a little love, and a safe place to live. That's all anyone needs. We aren't so different, you and me." Suddenly, Earl was bathed in pink light so bright and warm it looked like an angel had materialized outside the window. Because one did. Holly had turned on her lights. Earl could see her through the window, walking from her kitchen to her living room. She had on a pink satin robe with fuzzy trim around the collar, and her hair was wrapped in fat pink curlers. She looked like a Hollywood starlet clutching a Tupperware bowl full of Day-Glo orange cheese puffs. Earl's heart fluttered just looking at her, until he remembered he was standing in front of the window in red satin panties. If Holly looked over, she'd see everything, and he'd never be able to look her in the eyes ever again. Earl started for his room, but someone knocked on the door. He froze. Bucky had come for him. Bucky was here, and Earl couldn't face him wearing this. He whirled around looking for something, anything to cover himself up. Luckily, Granny had done the laundry. The basket sat on the end of the old brown floral sofa, waiting to be folded. Earl grabbed a sweater and a pair of pants off the top and pulled them on. Then he ducked down and slunk as quiet as possible to the door. He stayed low so no one could see him through the tiny diamond-shaped windows at the top. He grabbed a chair and quietly slid it under the knob. It wouldn't be enough to stop Chester and his giant cousins, but it might slow them down. Earl crouched down out of sight while he figured out what to do next. Maybe if he were really quiet, they'd go away. Maybe they'd look for him somewhere else. They knocked again, and Granny shrieked, "Ah, fish!" Her eyes were closed, her head was back, mouth open, drooling. She must be dreaming. But the murderous goons on the other side of the door heard her, because they pounded again, harder this time. So much for staying quiet. Just Earl's luck. Granny opened one eye and said, "What the heck are you waiting for? Answer the door!" "Granny, shush!" She didn't. "What are you doing over there, Earl? Open the door before they knock again. All that racket hurts my ears." All hope drained out of Earl. The walls and doors and old trailers were so thin, Earl knew Bucky heard every word clear as day. Bucky knew he was here. Now he'd never leave. Earl had no choice but to make a stand. He decided to go down fighting, so he grabbed his old baseball bat out of the umbrella stand. Earl only played Little League for half a season, but Granny had kept that bat by the door ever since. Earl rose up, slow and quiet, just high enough to peek out the window to see who he was dealing with. He saw blinking red and green Christmas lights, and his stomach dropped. It wasn't Bucky. It was so much worse. It was Chip, Carl, and Craig, the 3 C's. They stood on his porch dressed like old-fashioned aristocrats, top hats and tuxedo coats with Jolly Carolers Club sashes across their chest. They had blinking green and red Christmas lights sewn to their collars and held battery-powered candles with faux flickering flames that were blindingly bright. Earl moved the chair, opened the door a crack, and said, "Go away, now's not a good time." He slammed the door shut, but it hit something and bounced back. Chip's boot was in the crack. "Don't be a grump, Frost," Chip said. "We came all the way out here to sing you a song. Do you know how many people were on the wait list for carolers this year? We had to skip some fine, upstanding citizens to make room for you." Chip looked Earl up and down, frowning. "Gee, how charitable," Earl said. "Sure is. I promised Holly I'd bring cheer to the cheer list tonight, and I am a man of my word. A good thing, too. Look at this place. No Christmas lights? I knew you were a Scrooge, but this is a tragedy." Granny yelled, "There's a light string out there. Just step on the switch. And hurry up. You're letting all the heat out. I ain't made of money." Fire rose in Earl's cheeks, but the 3 C's were the least of his problems. He poked his head out to look behind him, expecting Bucky's van to come roaring into the trailer park any second. Chip stepped on Granny's power strip and a single string of flashing blue lights clicked on. "Well, it's not much, but it'll do. At least Holly's in the spirit. I'm heading over there next." Chip winked at Earl, then he said, "Nice sweater, but the pants really make the outfit." Earl looked down. He should have paid more attention to the laundry. He had on the red polyester "I do it for the hose" Santa sweater his Aunt Clara had gotten him for Christmas last year, along with Granny's stretch pants, the ones with the dancing snowmen on them. And ooh boy, were they stretched. So tight the snowmen looked like they were melting in terror, and here Earl thought this night couldn't get any worse. "Well, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and sing, then go," Earl said. "Well, no need to get snippy," Chip scowled. "We have prepared one song, picked extra special just for you. Of course, you're welcome to listen in when we sing for Holly. I got something epic planned for her, and it's going to end with me asking her for a date. She's going to be so wild she can't say no." Chip sharp grinned, and Earl gripped that baseball bat so tight it should have snapped in half. The 3 C's cleared their throats and began to sing, "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch," because of course that's the song they picked. Earl gritted his teeth and quietly endured until they sang the part about a seasick crocodile and Granny's Christmas lights popped off the eaves and landed on the porch. They hit so hard that sparks and plastic chunks flew everywhere. Chip, Carl, and Craig looked at each other confused, but they didn't stop singing. Earl was confused too. Those lights didn't fall off. They were pulled off. "What are you idiots doing to my lights?" Granny said. "Those cost money." Carl and Craig looked nervous, but Chip side-eyed them and they kept singing. Earl leaned out to look around but saw nothing but deep, pitch-black winter darkness all around, except for Holly's place, of course, and the lone tall streetlight over the Misty Pines sign. All the other trailers were dark. The folks in Misty Pines were either old and asleep by now or already downtown at the festival. Then something white flashed behind Chip, Carl, and Craig. The singing abruptly stopped, and hot liquid hit Earl's face. "What the?" Earl wiped his eyes, and when he opened them to see what hit him, he had to wipe them again because he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Chip, Carl, and Craig's heads were gone. Their bodies stood upright, still holding their battery-powered candles, but their necks were ragged wounds shooting blood straight up like freshly popped champagne bottles. Then their bodies fell and hit the porch with a loud thunk, thunk, thunk like hunks of dead meat. Because they were. Earl wanted to scream but couldn't. Something stood on the porch staring at him. Emphasis on thing. A creature as tall as a man, broad and thick, with a white scaly body. Its head looked like an anglerfish, with a huge mouth lined with spiky teeth. It had giant glassy blind eyes surrounded by a head full of octopus tentacles. Gills fluttered at its neck. Its mouth opened and closed, swallowing in air. It wasn't Bucky's crab creature from the Black Lagoon this time. It was a fish that walked on land like a man, a fish man, and it was big. Holy shit, Earl thought. Bucky's monsters are real. The fishman hissed. Then it stomped a giant webbed foot down on the 3C's battery-powered candles and blinking sashes. It stomped and stomped until the lights fizzled and went dark. Earl wanted to scream, but wasn't dumb enough to do it out loud. So he screamed on the inside, "Holy shit, that's a goddamn fish monster! And they're real! And I don't want to die wearing satin panties! And ah!" Mostly the last two things over and over, until the fishman's gigantic webbed hand came down next to Earl. It ripped the porch light clean off the siding, leaving nothing but sparking wires. The porch went dark, and the fishman stepped over the 3C's bodies coming for Earl. It was trying to get in the house. It made a horrible clicking sound as it moved. Earl lifted his baseball bat but hesitated because it was Little League size, not Major League. Hitting this thing with such a tiny bat felt like trying to kill a big spider with a flip-flop. If Earl hit it and didn't kill it, he'd just piss it off. Then the whole situation would be worse. "Earl, move!" Granny screamed. Earl didn't. He puffed up instead, making himself look bigger and tougher while he tried to figure out what to do. That's what you were supposed to do when facing a bigger predator. He saw it on TV. But it didn't work. The thing kept coming. So that was the last time Earl was going to trust anything he saw on the Nature Channel. Granny yelled, "Earl, move now! No, it'll get in!" Earl held steady, blocking the door as the thing hissed and clicked at him, until Granny's wheelchair rolled into the back of his leg and he heard the cock of a gun. He looked back. Granny was right behind him with a double-barreled shotgun in her bent old hands. "I said drop!" She lifted the butt of that gun, and boy did Earl drop. He wasn't stupid. Granny had a gun, but she also had palsy. It'd be a miracle if she could hold on to something that heavy, let alone hold it steady enough to hit what she was aiming for. The creature hissed and stepped through the door. Its fat, webbed foot hit the gold shag carpet, and Granny fired. All right, ghouls, come back tomorrow, and I will read you Chapter 5.